All right. Well, in the interest of time, we'll go ahead and get started. I know you've got a few people still trickling in, but I want to welcome you. Thank you so much for taking the time to be a part of our 2021 Impact and Capacity Grants Initiative informational webinar. My name is Nadine, and before we get started, I would like to ask that if you haven't already, please mute yourself so that we can keep background noise to a minimum. I also want to let you know that we are recording and we will post this along with the transcript to the initiative webpage in the next day or two. So if you have folks that wanted to join but weren't able, please be sure to point them towards that resource. So the purpose of our time today together, we've invited you to participate in this informational webinar for a few reasons. We want to describe the Impact and Capacity Grants Initiative verbally and in an interactive way, including providing a chance for you to ask any questions you might already have about this funding opportunity. And we wanted to give you some space to network with others in your area of focus and with KHF staff, us. As questions come up for you, you are welcome to enter them into the chat, and folks from our team will track those and make sure that we get them answered during the Q&A portion of the meeting. Or also please feel free to hold on to them and ask them yourself at that time. Okay, so I wanted to start the networking that we're going to be doing today by providing introductions to the KHF staff you have with you on the call this afternoon. So those are the folks that you see listed on your screen, and I'll ask them if their video is on to give you a wave so you can put a face to a name. Ashley Thorne is here. She's our Program and Evaluation Associate and has done an amazing job with logistics today, so thanks to her for being here. Blair Weibert, Grants Officer. Candace Malone, Program Assistant. Also want to thank her for her efforts to pull this together. Carolyn Williams, Senior Program Officer. Sean Brown, Program Officer. Gina Hess, Grants Associate. Jeff Usher, Senior Program Officer. Myself, I'm the Director for Strategic Learning and Grants Administration. And Natalie Olmstead, Program Officer. She's not on the list, but is also a very important person in terms of making these types of things happen. I want to thank Valerie Black, our IT officer, for also being part of today's event. Okay. So before we discuss the 2021 ICG initiative, we thought it would be useful to provide some background. KHF uses a number of different strategies to try and help our state move toward a Kansas where everyone can make healthy choices where they live, work, and play. We began offering a responsive grant program as one strategy in 1994, and it has taken several forms since that time. In recent years, we have referred to it as our Recognition Grant Program, and in 2017, that to the Impact and Capacity Initiative, or ICG is the acronym that I've been using, based on what we were hearing from nonprofits in the field about what their needs were. This responsive initiative is intended to allow applicants like you all doing very important mission-aligned work in your communities so that you can choose the type of support that best meets your needs for implementing projects or building organizational capacity. We've also modified this responsive grant program from year to year, sometimes in smaller ways, if you might have noticed, shifting for example, to allow fiscal sponsorships, or this year as another example, after hearing from smaller organizations that the way we had structured this as a first come, first serve opportunity gave more resourced organizations a leg up because of their existing capacity to act quickly. So we decided to experiment with releasing the information about the RFP opportunity before making the application available in an effort to give everyone the same lead time to prepare proposals. We've also modified this initiative in bigger ways. Like last year, we focused this entirely on COVID-19 response and relief. But the intent has always been to be responsive to community needs, especially as those have changed over time, with a particular focus on those experiencing the greatest inequities. And with that, I will turn it over to Sean to share more about what the 2021 funding opportunity looks like.
Great, thanks, Natalie. Thanks, Nadine. I'm Sean Brown and delighted to be with you today to talk a little bit about the Impact and Capacity Grants Initiative. It's one of the funding mechanisms we use to support organizations whose mission aligns with KHF and are proposing strategies to make progress in reducing disparities in one or more of KHF's 4 impact areas. So KHF awards up to $2 million annually. Organizations can receive up to $25,000 per year and be able to apply in one of two categories, either an impact or a capacity building grant. The grant term is up to 2 years, and applications will be accepted from May 3rd to August 31st, 2021, or until all the funds are expended. So in essence, there's a rolling deadline until August 31st. Next slide, please. So the impact and capacity grants are health policy systems or environmentally focused efforts which demonstrate the opportunity to address health disparities in one or more of the impact areas and affects those who are systematically experiencing greater obstacles to health. So available funding is designed to support new or expanded efforts. KHF focuses on the following impact areas. So regarding access to care, KHF supports efforts to address gaps or barriers to accessing health care, oral health, behavioral health, or to improve the health of all Kansans. With healthy behaviors, the focus is on disparities in terms of decreasing tobacco use, increasing physical activity, or increasing access to healthy foods. Civic and community engagement is designed to build a more equitable society, lifting up data, narrative, and programs that highlight inequities and work to shift power. And then with educational attainment, it's about addressing systemic inequities in our educational system to help more Kansas children acquire the skills in the classroom and beyond. Next slide, please. So with the impact grants, they may include policy, systems, change advocacy, including grassroots organizing, time-limited projects, and initiative planning assessments. And I won't describe all the activities, but you'll find more of that on page 7 of the RFP. In a moment, I'll provide some examples, but first, I just want to mention that we think that policy is important because policy impacts the economic, social, physical, and service environments of residents in our state. And health in all policies is critically important. So examining policies not traditionally thought of as health policies, such as transportation or agriculture or land use or education or economics, because these can ultimately have an impact on economic well-being and health. The other thing to think about is equity in all policies. All policies can produce either positive or negative impacts on communities. So in terms of examples, for example, related to access to care, one option might be to address the high rate of African-American infant deaths in Kansas by advocating for systems level changes that promote birth equity. So an organization might focus on policies and practices to reduce barriers or improve the health of women and infants by increasing their access to multiple levels of care. With healthy behaviors, one might promote worksite wellness policies that determine what types of food may be available on site. And if employees are encouraged to be up and actively mobile throughout their day, thereby improving healthy behaviors. Or it could be something related to complete streets policies that make it more, make it so that cities are more bikeable and more walkable. An organization might improve civic and community engagement by increasing voter registration or education or mobilization or turnout, especially among Kansans that are new to the political process or historically underrepresented and affected by health disparities. An organization might focus on how it can bring social entrepreneurs or businesses to focus on creating inclusive economies to address issues identified by residents, whether that's a need for access to healthy foods or ways to increase access to care through telehealth or ways to increase household income so that families have greater access to goods and services. And then with education, for example, in some states, they have education policies that mandate early literacy screening be administered in grades K through 3rd within the first 30 days of school to identify those school students with potential reading difficulties. So some organizations may consider how they want to work with school districts to impact school policies. Or an organization might focus on how to get computers to families in need by working with the business community to recycle computers. And then the organization might not just distribute the computers, but really give access to families and their children so that they have academic help, and then the adults have access to workforce development. And by the way, if you have an interest in digital inclusion, be watching our website for future opportunities. And so with that, I will stop there and turn it over to Natalie to talk a little bit about capacity building.
I have a few more for open. And if they're not, if you find one that's like every once in a while you find one that isn't sealed.
Okay, sorry about that. So Sean, thank you. I'm Natalie Olmstead, Program Officer. And yes, I'm going to talk about the capacity building grants. So these are internally focused efforts designed to help your organization fulfill its mission. They are designed to enhance the leadership, management, funding and financial management, relationships and collaboration with other partners, your communications and marketing, and other programs and services within your organization, and also evaluation and more learning aspects. So examples of these, because I really stress that with capacity building, these are internal. How can these really strengthen your organization to be able to do your mission work? So an example for access to care. A community mental health center might be in need of technology. So the purchase of laptops, webcams, and software, so they can begin offering telehealth services to reach rural residents. Healthy Behaviors could be a community council or coalition, and it could help pay the salary of a full-time manager to oversee a mobile grocer that has been established to start serving food in food deserts in targeted communities. Civic and community engagement could be a nonprofit who is providing workshops and training for their staff and their members and volunteers to help build their skills and increase their knowledge around organizing and advocating for policy change, and or increase voter registration and turnout in a Hispanic Latino community. Educational attainment could be a university or college helping to fund a graduate research assistant to collect very important data to improve practices and build a comprehensive understanding of the Indian education landscape to improve the educational experiences of Native American students in Kansas. So these are all very prime examples, but if you go back to the RFP, you'll see that it's a much broader aspect as well, but these I hope will help you kind of identify when we talk about capacity, it's internally and strengthening and building your foundation in order to help those that you are serving. And so at this time, I will now turn it over to Blair, who will then talk about eligibility, the timeline of the grant, and how to apply.
Thank you, Natalie. My name is Blair. I'm the grants officer here at the Kansas Health Foundation. As Natalie said, the first thing we'll discuss is eligibility. So anybody who is wanting to apply for an ICG, eligible applicants are nonprofits, so 501c3s, anybody that is a subsection 509A1 or a 509A2 according to the Internal Revenue Code. And then outside of nonprofits, we will definitely accept applications from government entities, anybody with an FEIN number, and churches with a group ruling letter. If you have questions about whether or not, you're not sure if you're eligible or not, feel free to reach out to us at grants@khf.org. We're more than happy to help you out. Anybody who does not fall under those requirements, don't feel discouraged. As Nadine said, we made some changes in recent years to allow organizations to work with a fiscal sponsor as long as that fiscal sponsor is also eligible. So that is an option, a route that you can go if you do not fall under any of those requirements that I just listed. All right, next slide. So the timeline of this RFP, so as Sean said, applications will be released on Monday, May 3rd. It is a rolling deadline, so you should hear within 45 days of when you click submit. mostly we've got a pretty good track record of letting you know before that 45 days, but max, you should hear from us within 45 days as to whether or not you were awarded funding. The last day that you can submit a proposal is Tuesday, August 31st by 5 p.m. So I want to make that very clear that if you click the submit button after 5 p.m., you will not be considered for funding. So make sure that you get your proposals in before that time. The other stipulation that I want to point out is that if we do award all of our $2 million before that date of August 31st, we will close the RFP. This actually happened last year due to COVID requests, which I don't think surprised anybody. But it is a possibility that we could run out of the $2 million. We could award it all before August 31st. So if that does happen, we will close the RFP before that date. So last, like absolutely, late notice or last notice as to whether or not you were awarded funding would be Monday, October 25th. So a lot of those apply to the people that are getting their applications in closer to that August 31st timeline. So Monday, October 25th. If you don't hear anything from us by then, feel free to reach out and let us know that you submitted a proposal, you haven't heard from us yet, and we'll look into it. Okay, next slide. Okay, so how to apply. So no surprise to anybody, all of our applications should be submitted through our online portal. We did make a couple updates to our portal this past January. So anybody who had a user account prior to that January date, you guys should have received an email just giving you a heads up that it's going to look a little different next time you log in. If you think you had an account before January and you didn't get that email, feel free to reach out to us. And we're happy to look into it and help you out in any way we can. Otherwise, if you have never logged into our portal before, you'll need to create a user account, and you can do that through our login page. So what I'll do now, I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to take control over from Nadine, and we're going to take you guys through the application. And okay, can you guys see? Someone give me a thumbs up if you guys can see my screen. Perfect. Okay, so when you, this should be the first thing you see in our portal. It's our login page. So again, if you're a new user, you can just click here and it'll take you through the registration process. It's pretty simple. Just looking up your organization, typing in your information, and all that good stuff. So that's how you'll do that here if you're a new user. If you forgot your password, you can always do that here. Anybody who has their account ready to go, you'll just log in. And then it'll take you to the home screen. So if you have not started an application yet, you'll do that here where it says Open Grant Opportunities. Now we don't have it listed because it's not live yet, but down here is where you'll see the application, and you'll click on it and you'll start a new one there. So just a heads up, make sure that you guys know whenever you click on this and you click Start New Application, it creates a brand new one for you. So you don't need to click that every time, even if you haven't entered anything into it just yet. As soon as you click it, it creates an application for you, and you can always come back to that later to enter your information. If you have started one, which I have done, you can click on applications up here, and it'll take you to anything that is in process. So we've created a test one for you. You'll click View or Edit. And then it shows you all the different sections that you'll need to complete. So this first one is just all of the basic information, the start and end date, a project description, what area of the state you're going to serve, all the kind of just overview stuff. And then this section, if you are a fiscal sponsor, this is where you would indicate that down here. If you do click yes, it'll ask you for some more information about who you're working with. But let's go ahead, because I know in order to show you guys how to submit, we'll start today and end there. Put this information in. Alrighty. So then the next section is really telling us who you're going to be working with on the grant. So the main thing we want to make sure is that you do have a primary contact role indicated. So each of the roles that people play on this grant, we've got it defined up here. And the primary contact is the person who's authorized to sign legal documents for the organization that's applying. So in other words, if you guys were to apply and you received funding, that person is who we would address the grant agreement to. So that's why it's important that we have that person. It automatically will put you as the proposal contact, and you can always go in and you can edit your role, or you can edit anyone else's role that you add on here. So say that I want to be the report contact, and then I can put myself as also the payment contact, and I click save. So it's pretty easy. You can add and edit as needed. If you are adding people, you'll just simply come down here and we'll look up Nadine. And she's our person we want to add. And then same thing, it just asks you some pretty basic questions. So one thing that you can do is you can give someone who's not applying, you can give them access to the grant. So if someone else is going to be working with you on the grant, you can give them access so that they can log in as well. And they can open up the application without even having to do anything. You can do that for them. And we'll say that Nadine, she doesn't need to edit the grant. And let's say that she's going to be our project director. And we'll just click add grant role. And then you can see it adds her up here, and you can always go in and edit as needed. Okay, next section. So the next section is really kind of where all the meat and potatoes of the application is going to be. It's going to be kind of these narrative questions, and this is where you'll indicate if you're applying for a capacity building grant or if you're applying for an impact grant. So you'll see that depending on what you apply for, we just have some slightly different questions asked. Okay. And then the next section will be the budget section. So it'll start off blank, and we've got all the instructions up here. You have the budget table, and then you've got a narrative that's going to ask you how to describe, the answers that you give us, the numbers that you give us. We really, regardless of whether your project is going to span 1 year or multiple years, we only need one budget year. So you don't, if your project takes 2 years, we still just need one. So no need to divide it up by years if you're doing multiple years. So you'll click add new budget year. And again, we've got the definitions of each category. So you'll just say I'm doing my one budget year. You'll put in the amount, let's say, and then your justification. And then we'll put in like $500. We'll put in 200, and then we'll just say 100. Now, the nice thing is it does all the math for you. So no need to worry, it'll do the math for you, and you can double check your answers that, maybe you went over, instead of you accidentally put a wrong number in and you're over the $25,000 limit. It'll kind of allow you to double check that here at the bottom. And then like we said, you tell us here in the justification how you came up with your numbers there. And you'll click save. And then it'll add it up here for you. And same thing, if you want to edit something, you can go in and edit. It's pretty easy to do so. And then if you just want to start all over again, you can do that as well. It's pretty easy to do. Now down here, So up here is the funding that you're requesting from KHF. So this number up here should not exceed $25,000. Down here, if you have additional funding that is helping you support your work, you can put that down here. We really just need the name of the funder and how much is assisting you. So let's say the United Way is putting in $10,000 in addition to what you're requesting from KHF. You can indicate that down here. And if you don't have any additional funding, you can leave it blank, or you can just put in, you know, does not apply. Whatever is appropriate for this box, you can put that in here. So we'll go to the last section, which is the attachment section. We've got it all listed out here. So these are the second part is the required financial documents. So we just need, you know, a 990 and a balance sheet from nonprofits. If you're a government entity, we have an enabling statute, which we kind of give you the description where you can find that. And then if you're a church, we would like to have a group ruling letter if it's available. So those are the financial documents from your organization that we need. Everybody, regardless of whether you're a nonprofit, government, or church entity, everybody is required to complete our electronic funds transfer authorization form. So this is for our finance department. Again, if you are awarded funding, all of our funding is distributed electronically. So these forms help us get the check out to you quicker. So having this in place helps us get the money out to you guys quicker if you are awarded funding. So these forms up here, they're instructions on how to securely upload this information. You're not going to attach these forms below. And the reason why we do that different is because it is sensitive banking information, and we don't want to be careless with that. So the instructions are on this form. You can just click on it and you can see it downloads it for you. So you have that available, and then the instructions are below. And then finally, if you are a fiscal sponsor, we do have a packet for you and the organization you're working with to complete. So you can download that there and it'll pop up, and you can download that and complete that between the two of you, and then you can submit it. So once you have everything ready to go for 2 and 3, then you can just click new, and you can go choose your file to upload, and we'll just click this file. Click save, and then this is available. So anytime you want to just double check it, you can look at it, and it'll give you a nice little preview to make sure that it uploaded correctly. You can always print it off here and you can download, and then if you uploaded the wrong thing, you can always delete that as well. But yeah, so that's the file section.
Did you go to the bathroom?
And once you have everything ready to go, then you can come down here and you can click submit. And it'll ask, you know, ask if you double checked if you're ready to submit. And then once you're ready to submit, you'll click it. And then it'll take you out here. So you can always double check to make sure that it did submit by here. It says the status, it'll give you a status of submitted. So it went through. And then you can always come in and view it, and it will not be, you can't edit anything else once you click submit. Everything will be grayed out. Now, the last thing I want to say about the application is the one kind of downside to our portal is that you cannot look at it all in one to print it off. However, part of our processing of your application on the back end is we do put together a document with all of your answers in one PDF, and we will attach that to your file section. So even though you've submitted it, you can always open it and go to the file section. And within, I would say, probably the next day or two, then you can always come down here and you'll see a proposal PDF, and you can click on it and then you can print it off that way if you want to have that. We do get asked that quite a bit. So that will be made available to you once you have submitted your application. I think that's it for my end. I know that got probably the biggest portion of it, but I want to make sure that everybody feels comfortable with submitting, especially in the new portal that we have. If you are not sure if you're ready to submit an application, we do have on our website all of the questions that will be asked in the application. So you can preview those prior to going through the registration process and starting an application and all of that. So that is available to you to view ahead of time to help you plan as to whether or not you want to submit a proposal. And with that, I will let Nadine take back over with the screen and we'll get going on the rest of our presentation.
All right. Thank you, Blair. And don't go too far. You might have seen the chat lighting up, and they are, I would say, 100% for you. Ashley, do you want to ask Blair the questions that have come up so far?
Yes, thank you. So Blair, one of the questions is, what about a 501c6s?
That is ineligible.
Okay. And how would you classify higher education institutions?
Universities, higher education institutions, they are eligible. Usually they're considered, I mean, I guess not usually, but a lot of times they tend to be considered government institutions. If you're not sure what the tax status is of, whatever higher learning you're a part of, feel free to reach out to us. Like I said, our email for the grants kind of admin team is grants@khf.org. And we're pretty quick to be able to look up what your organization is classified as tax status wise. So if you're not sure, feel free to reach out to us, but usually universities are eligible.
Thanks, Blair. A handful more. Just to clarify, the cap of $25,000 still applies if you ask for 2 years of funding.
Correct. Total. We're not necessarily looking for the length of funding, although we do require max, like your project should not take more than 2 years, but 25,000 total over 2 years is perfectly fine.
Okay, thank you. Who specifically should someone contact about account login information?
If they reach out, so grants@khf.org is kind of our grants administrative team. We've got several people who monitor that email. So that would be the best one to reach out to. You'll have probably a better chance of getting a quick response because we've got multiple people that monitor that email.
And I know one of our teammates, Jeff, shout out to Jeff, thank you for answering this question, but one of them was, is the portal new as of January 2021 or January 2020?
So we actually started the portal before January 2020, and we just made updates in January 2021. So that's why I said if you had an account, I would say I think we launched it in 2019. I think it was January 2019. So anytime in 2019 or 2020, if you had an account during that time, you should have received an email in this previous January 2021 that let you know that, the portal looks different and that kind of thing. So again, if you're not sure, feel free to reach out to us. It's pretty quick and easy for us to look up your account information.
Our service area covers 3 different areas on our map. Do we list them all?
Yes. And I'm gonna real quick, actually, let me see. We have the map that okay, I'm gonna steal the screen again. So on the application, so on our application here, we do have this link here. So for this question, when we're asking about the region served, we do have a map that if you click on that link, it shows you the map that we're basing this off of. So if you have multiple regions, then, select all that apply.
Ashley, are you still there?
Oh my gosh, I was talking the whole time. I'm so sorry.
Okay. Thanks.
That question was answered by Candace, and so thank you, Candace, but others might be wondering the same question. Are grant questions available before May 3rd open date? Would you be able to share your screen on where they can find that on our website?
I'm sorry, what was the first part of the question?
The grant questions, where we can find that on our website?
Oh, correct. Yes. Let me pull up where that is located. Nadine, this is a fun little back and forth that we're playing here.
I've also included the link to that PDF template in the chat if anybody wants to use that link.
Okay, so thank you, Candace. So this is our website. If you go to the impact and capacity grants portion, and you scroll kind of towards, let's see, where it says how to apply, we have this PDF version here. So this is where that application I was telling about, all the different questions that we ask. So this is where you can find that, and you can download it and print it off. And here's, we've got, you know, the specific impact grant questions and the specific capacity building grant questions, and then the budget and the application. So it should be pretty much a full application, what you would see online. You've got it here in a PDF format for you.
Thank you, Blair. Another question is, if we have a person working on a grant along with us, they need to create a separate account within the portal, correct?
Yes, so that it's best practice for each person within an organization to have their own login. This is because one of the changes that we made to the portal this past January was that the login, a person's login is based on the email that they use to create the user account. So if you use your own email to create your account, that's your username. Your username is your email. So it's best practice just for every person to have their own login within the organization. But it's not required. I will say that's not required, but it is recommended.
Thanks. And several people are asking if there are word limits within the narrative section of the application.
Yes, there are word limits. I can't tell you off the top of my head what they are. If you have that specific question, feel free to reach out and we can find that information for you.
So this one might be you or Nadine.
Okay.
Telehealth patient monitoring systems as medical equipment or direct medical services. We classify it as access to health, monitoring, communication, and educational purposes, but need to know if it will be denied if it is seen as medical equipment or services.
I'll let Nadine handle that one.
So based on what you've described just there, I would say yes, that does sound like medical equipment. But if you want to email us that question again, just so that I can read it and process it a little bit more deeply, I'd be happy to look at that one more time. But I would say in this moment, yeah, that does sound like medical equipment. And I'll look to Blair to disagree with me if she does.
Yeah, I think you answered it perfectly. And then just as a side note to that, we do have an FAQ sheet that's listed on our website as well. And a lot of I want to say there might be a question related to that on there. So you might double check that first as well. So, you know, we always recommend that everybody always read through the RFP document and the FAQ document that's on our website. Because a lot of, like I said, some of those questions might already be answered there as well. But again, if you're still not quite sure, feel free to reach out to us. Like Nadine said, sometimes when you pose those questions in an email, it'll allow us to really process it a little bit, like Nadine said, a little bit deeper.
All right, next question, either one, Nadine or Blair. What is the recommended start date for the grant?
I think we always recommend that you should apply at least ahead of 2 weeks, right? I think ahead of when your grant should start, right? Was it 2 weeks? So really the best, probably the better answer to that is knowing that it is a 45-day turnaround. If you're needing funds pretty quickly, then I would give yourself that much time to apply. Because once you do get notified, then it should be pretty quick funds out the door after that. So I would say at least 45 days ahead of when your grant should start.
There's also a question about the school district system does not support electronic payments. Does that make them ineligible?
No, that does not make you ineligible. On the application, we do where we have that form for the EFT and the W-9. We do list our finance assistant. Her name is Mary Port. She is the person that I would ask that to, because she would be able to tell you how payment would go if your organization does not support electronic payments.
And to just clarify, the budget won't be uploaded as a document. It will be added into the grant system, correct?
Correct. Yes, correct. It will be entered online.
How many weeks was the grant window open last year before the funds were gone?
Last year was an anomaly. I will preface that. We saw a lot. I mean, everybody had a lot of need last year with COVID. But last year funds were gone within 2 weeks. But like I said, that was an anomaly. I mean, I've definitely not been at the foundation the longest, but I've been here for 6 years now. And that was the first time that I am aware of, definitely in my time and hearing from others who have been around longer than I have, that funds ran out before the deadline. So that was an anomaly, but last year was 2 weeks.
What financial forms should be submitted by a school district?
If you really, school districts probably don't need to upload any kind of financial documents, because we know you're a government entity. It's pretty, you know, as long as if you're a public school system, we know you're probably a government entity. I don't think that public school districts really don't need much with this RFP as far as uploading any kind of financial documents. We know you're government funded. And that's really, I mean, if at most, if you have something that states your status as a government funded entity, as a public school district, then that's fine. But really, you really shouldn't have to upload anything.
Is the post-award reporting process outlined in the RFP?
Yes, I believe it is, right? Yeah, Nadine shaking her head, yes.
Yeah, it sure is. And it consists of 2 items, both submitted at the end of your grant term. One is we're going to ask you to tell us how the grant funds were spent. And the second piece we're asking folks to do is share with us any stories of impact, including pictures, videos, PDFs, whatever captures the impact that your project had on the community that you're engaging and serving in the project. So we tried to keep it pretty straightforward and simple for folks.
Thank you, Nadine. Is this eligibility for ongoing programming? I know the grant is available for this grant cycle, but do we have to have a hard 12-month stop or 24-month cycle for the program itself?
Nadine.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'll jump in there. So it's a little bit different for impact versus capacity building. For impact grant, it can be for an existing program that's ongoing, but we ask that these funds go specifically to either new or expanded efforts. So let's say that you've got a program that's already in existence, but you'd really like to bring on a coordinator to engage the Latino or Hispanic population in your community. That's an example of a project that, while it's existing, we ask that these funds go to expanding the effort. It does not have to end in 12 months or 24 months. It can go past that. On the capacity building side, we issue those funds to you to use, like we say in the RFP, to build your organizational capacity. And so really there's no time frame expectation around that piece of the work. And it can go to ongoing costs. So if you want to request funding for rent or utilities, staff salaries, all of those are eligible and don't need to be tied to a time frame.
Thank you, Nadine. This one might be for you again as well. Can we apply for outdoor classroom? We have blueprints and an estimate.
So this is another one. It's hard for us to say a firm yes or no with very little specifics. We want to make this funding opportunity as inclusive as possible. So we always hate to say that things are ineligible. If you want to reach out to us via email through the grants@khf.org email, I feel like we can give you a little bit better answer, because blueprints make me think construction, and construction's ineligible. But like I said, with more specifics, I think we can get you a more definite answer. Sorry to put you off like that.
Well, and with that, the next question is, can someone visit with a KHF staff member to talk about the project to help determine whether it is capacity or impact grant?
So we welcome you to reach out to anybody on this call. We're more than happy to have a conversation with you. The caveat that I would add to that is that, like I said, we try to make this a very inclusive funding opportunity. So we're not always able to give you a firm yes or no, whether or not you should apply. We really try to do a good job in the RFP, with this webinar, with the FAQs, to provide as much guiding information as possible. But at the end of the day, we're asking applicants to review all that information carefully and closely and decide for themselves if they feel like turning an application is worth the effort. We really don't like to be discouraging, and we know that you have to be smart about where and how you spend your time. So it's a delicate balance that we try to maintain. But again, would just say, if you want to have a conversation, you know, we are here and we want to build relationships with folks. So welcome that contact, but it's hard for us to give you a firm yes or no.
And with that, I want to, Jane was asking about trails, whether that's included. So what I hear you say is they can reach out to a KHF staff member for any project specific questions.
Yes, and I would use, again, I mentioned everybody on this call, but the grants@khf.org is the email that you'll probably get the quickest response from.
Question, I believe, is for Blair. It's a very basic question. The word limit, the character count, they'll find that within the portal, correct? Or is it listed in the RFP?
It is not listed anywhere, and I don't think we have the character count on, like, within the questions giving you that countdown. I don't believe that was a feature for our portal. But like I said, if you are curious about what that character count is, please feel free to reach out to us at the email grants@khf.org. We'll get that answer for you.
And that is all I have right now for questions. Thank you, Blair and Nadine. If I missed anyone on the call that put something in the chat, we will have another time within the presentation to ask additional questions.
Well, and I do have two, actually, if I can jump in really quickly. Karen asked, we had a change in our administration at the end of last year. Do we create a new account, or do we need to change the contact info in the current account we have?
That's a good question. I think it depends on the email that was used to create the account. So if you're not sure about what email was used, then I would just go ahead and create a brand new account with a new email. If you would like to keep that same login, but you're not sure, again, feel free to reach out to us. We can look up that information for you and get it fixed. But if you're just not sure, I would recommend just starting a whole new account with a new email.
Great, thank you. And then we also had a question about the criteria for the impact and capacity building applications, how they're reviewed. I can tell you that what we're using as review criteria related to impact grants. We're looking at the extent to which the applicant organization's mission, vision, and aims align with KHF's, the extent to which the plan for the proposed effort is compelling and addresses a community need that's experienced as a barrier to health and well-being, extent to which Kansans experiencing the disparities are centered and involved, and there's a rationale for the proposed intervention. The organization demonstrates a strong connection to the community served, and the extent to which applicants describe what will be different because of the effort. And then on capacity building, as with the first one, we're looking for the applicant organization's mission, vision, and aims and how they align with KHF's, the strength of the organization's connection to and presence in the community served, how funds will be used to support the organization, and a description of how the funding would help develop stronger organizational capacity. So these were developed based directly off of the questions that we ask in the proposal form. And Blair mentioned that we have an FAQ document. I know I just read those out loud really quickly, but I will make sure that we add a question to the FAQ, and these are all included there because it's a really good question.
Yeah, and I think, Nadine, if I'm correct, they're listed in the RFP, I believe.
They might be. I know we got the questions in there. I just went and looked for the criteria and didn't find it. So that's why I thought an FAQ for sure. Either way, if it's in the RFP or not, we'll make sure to include an FAQ so that information is accessible.
I think it's in there.
Okay, well, there you go. Thank you, Ashley, so much. I know, and thank you all. These were really great questions, and I so appreciate you sharing these with us so that we can get them answered. I want to give folks just another minute or so if you want to take yourself off of mute and ask a question or enter any others that you have into the chat. I do see one screen, it's labeled Meta's iPhone, and the hand is raised. Meta's iPhone, did we get your question answered, or would you like to ask a new one?
Yes, you answered it. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Okay, and I think one more, I don't know if we've addressed this or not. Can adding staff be impact or capacity? And again, it just depends on the context that you're requesting that staff time for. If it's, I would say one, nothing is simple, right? But I would say the simplest way to think about the difference between impact and capacity is to think about whether this is an external focused effort. Are you doing something to support the health and well-being of populations, communities, Kansans in your community, or is this an internally focused effort that's going to help your organization have stronger capacity to move towards your mission? Again, if you want to email grants@khf.org, we're happy to examine that more closely with you, but that's the quick answer I would offer right now.
Joanne had a question.
Thank you.
Can you do a sign on to see if you have the correct sign on information prior to May 3rd?
Yeah. I think I'm still showing my screen. So you can log into our portal at any time, and we just won't have the application available in there until May 3rd. So if you're on our website, you can click here and it'll take you to our login page, and you're welcome to log in, create an account. If you're not sure if you have an account, you can test it out, or if you forgot your password, you can do that as well. So yeah, you can log into our portal at any time before May 3rd. You just won't be able to start an application until that time.